Hey there folks, how you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Please bear with any background racket that you might hear throughout this production. We are on location where life happens, and sometimes there's stuff going on right out there that interferes with what we're trying to do in here. This will be a continuation of last week's Unfiltered fans only content. Had over 1,000 viewers on that video. Thank you. That's a record for a UFO video, at least in the first week. I think we might have a couple of others that have gotten more views than that, but it took a long time to get there. This one spiked, and I have you people, the fans, not the noisy one in the corner, but you people, the fans, to thank for that. So again, thank you. For those of you that are not familiar with this, let me try that in English. For those of you that are not familiar with this portion of the content, this is something I do for the subscribers, for the loyal fans, for the folks that set the notification bell to let them know when I have a new video coming out. I do this, I call it Unfiltered fans only content or UFO content. Basically, aside from speaking what's on my mind a little more than I normally do, I also don't put the effort into the editing portion that we do in some of the other content. On that note, I do a lot of the editing for this stuff on my phone when I'm having downtime places. I have the app right there. I can do it there. It's easier than on the computer. Dropped my phone at the range yesterday. I actually didn't drop it. The wind caught my tripod while I was filming some content for y'all, and boom, right on the face of the camera. I've dropped it 1,000 times before, but this time did it in. Sorry about that. The dog was barking right outside of the barn. Okay, well anyway, let's get this done so that we can move on. Out here on the table in front of me, for those of you that are not familiar with this and don't know what it is, let me show you real quick. This, folks, is my 1984 Ruger Mini 14 with a Samson Manufacturing reproduction side folder.
I love it when a plan comes together.
And a K4, I think it is, or a K6, yeah, K4, 4-power, fixed power, El Paso Weaver scope of the same era. For those of you that are familiar with Weaver scopes and the time they spent in El Paso. Closed up shop in the States around 1985, 1986, somewhere in there. This one came out about the same time as this rifle. It's on a Weaver Mini 14 mount, and you can't tell me this thing wasn't purpose-built for this very rifle. Extremely cool little package. It has never had more than just a cameo appearance here on this channel, and I brought it out today. Hold on. I brought it out today because a viewer of last week's UFO content, on the ones that we miss, the ones we regret letting go, told me about his stainless Mini that he had. I'm going to try this from memory. I will look it up and put it down here. I think it was Indiana gas hauler. I felt that and I was like, oof. I have one myself, so I told him I was going to bring it out and show it on the video as my way of saying thanks for watching and commenting and being part of the discussion that we have here. Indiana gas hauler, I hope I got that right. I hope you like my Mini. I'll do what I can to make it the focal point of a video sometime in the near future. Give myself a little bit of room there. So, you people again, last week's poll decided that you wanted to see the list of guns that I regret not getting. Let me see here. I've got it written down. Bear with me. I'm going to read. It's just easier. I wrote it all down for you this morning while I was drinking my coffee. Now I'm going to read through it so I don't miss anything. For some of you younger folks, like my son, the microwave generation, the next day prime delivery folks, back in the day, and I'm not talking about horse and buggy days, I'm talking about right before and the very early days of the internet, if you wanted something that wasn't in a store, good luck finding it. Your best bet was to go to a store, ask them, see if they could order it for you. Maybe order it from a Sears catalog or a JCPenney catalog storefront if you lived in an area like where I lived. They actually had a little kiosk that you went to, looked through the pennies catalog, decided what you wanted, ordered it, and 2 to 4 weeks later you got it in the mail. It was a great thing. I'm sure you felt that. All right, so, you know, I'm old and I'm set in my ways, but I also embrace technology and advancements in the future. I'm fixing to get a brand new cell phone here in a couple of days. Also, you know, I've got a modern flashlight. I would have a more modern vehicle if finances would allow for it. I'm not opposed to new things. I just embrace the past sometimes, and that's what we're going to be doing here. So I'm going to be referencing some things a little bit here that you're going to be like, why didn't he just look online? It's because it wasn't an option back then. All right. You will notice a common theme here. I will frequently refer back to my local hardware store, which was the Thule hardware store. I will reference back to Western Auto, which was Western Auto was exactly what it sounds like. They still have Western Autos in some places, although we don't have them here. But, you know, they sell like a few basic home repair stuff. You might be able to get a water heater or a new stove or a washing machine or a refrigerator there, so long as it was white and a base model type. They didn't have a full showroom floor full of stuff. If you needed a chainsaw or your oil changed or a new set of tires, that was the place you went to. They also sold guns in my hometown. There's another place that I'll mention on here that I refer to as Tricky Dick's, or I will refer to Tricky Dick. Tricky Dick was actually a guy named Dick Dahmers. He was a retired sub-pilot, I believe. He spent a lot of time underwater with the Navy. But he ran a gun store called the Thule Trading Post, which was outside of Tularosa, New Mexico. Back in about a little over 20 years ago, he ran it for a few years. Great guy, sass shooter. Went by the name Whispering Walt, even though we told him it should be Tricky Dick. He didn't like that, but that's what we called him anyway, and he learned to embrace it. So, if you are still watching after all that, thanks, you're good folks. I appreciate you for it. All right. Again, this will make more sense to some of the geriatrics watching than it will to the young folks, but I hope everybody enjoys. Okay, without further ado, my list of the top 5 guns I missed out on. No particular order. There will be an honorable mention. There's a reason why the one that I picked as an honorable mention is the honorable mention. But moving right into it, number 1, I guess, the Ruger Red Hawk 44 Magnum. Tricky Dick, Thule Trading Post, was a Davidson's Gallery of Guns showroom. He ordered from them. He had an account with them and he got guns from them. Tricky Dick was retired Navy. He ran the gun shop as a hobby. He didn't make anything off of it. He literally did it for the fun of doing it. So that being said, his price compared to the other gun shops up the road from us a little ways, he was usually 10 to 15% under anybody else in the area. Tricky Dick, one day I walked into his shop, and at the time I had a problem with impulse buys on firearms, so I had promised my wife, if I find something I want, I will think about it overnight and I'll go back the next day if I just can't live without it. Walked into Tricky Dick's shop there in the showcase on the green velvet, these old school gun boxes that he had out there, was a Ruger Red Hawk 44 Magnum. And he wanted $375 for it. Now, this was circa 19. This was 2002, maybe 2003. So that's important. Okay, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, $375 in 2002 is equal to $651 today. I looked that up this morning. Current MSRP for a Ruger Red Hawk is $1,379. Back then, if you saw a Ruger Red Hawk in a shop, they were between $500 and $600. That was just the price they cost. So $375, I saw that. It still had the little plastic spacer behind the cylinder. I looked at him, I said, "Is that a new gun?" He said, "Yeah, it's a new gun." I said, "How can you price it for that?" And he said, "Well, Davidson's gave me such a good deal, I'm passing it on to whoever wants it." So I looked at it and I said, "Whew. Let me think about it." So I thought about it. I went home. I actually asked my wife about that one. I told her all about it. She's like, oh, go back and get it. So I grabbed the money out of the sock drawer. I took off back down there, and it was gone. Finite. Wasn't there anymore. It was a one-time deal. I guess Davidson had a overstock on them or whatever, so they offered the dealers a real low price on them. He passed on the savings, and somebody snatched it up like that. This miss resulted in me buying the Ruger Super Blackhawk that I had on last week's video. The one that I regret letting go of, which I did later on sell to my friend Alex. Whoever came in and bought that Red Hawk traded their Super Blackhawk on it. I got back down there, I had the cash in my hand. He saw the look of disappointment on my face, and I want to say he let me have that Super Blackhawk out the door for like $3.25. I think that's what he sold it to me for, was $3.25, which was a really, really good price. And I really enjoyed having it, and it got me into silhouette shooting and a whole bunch of other stuff. So no regrets on getting the Super Blackhawk, but I definitely missed out on the Red Hawk. Uh-oh, somebody's here. Who is it? It's Mopey. All right, Mopey, you can come out here. Sure.
I said in 15 minutes we were going to the store.
All right, yep, we're going to be going in just a minute. Can I finish this real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you going to stick around?
Yes, this is
all right.
I don't know.
Oh, this is very boring. Okay. All right. So, moving right along to number 2 on my list was the Puma Model 92 Saddle Ring Carbine in 357 or 38 Special. I believe at the time those were made by Rossi. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. This was again about 20 years, maybe a little over 20 years ago. And then I think later on they started making them in Italy, and they just weren't quite as good. Man, you can't find those, the little short saddle ring carbines. Oh man, I saw one and went to get the money. I didn't have money with me, and this was before I carried a credit card regularly, and bigger than heck, I missed out on it by the time I got back. Same gun shop, Tricky Dick's. All right, there wasn't much to that one. You can still find those here. I dug one up online. They're like $600 now, and you can find them. They're hard to find, and a lot of them, especially the ones that cowboy action shooter guys had, are shot up, and they're just no good anymore. Moving on to number 3 on our list, the Super Comanche, or more correctly, the Comanche Super Single Shot 45-410, not to be confused with the Super Comanche revolver made by Yama back in the day. These were cheap and plentiful at the Western Auto Hardware store in my hometown when I was a kid. By the time I was old enough to get one, they weren't so easy to come by. While perusing the urine-scented back alleys that are gunbroker.com, I found one this morning for $600. That is literally 6 times the old MSRP on those. So, now with the recent release of the Rossi Brawler pistol, I have renewed hope that while the nostalgia is flaring up, there will be something coming very soon that will help me scratch that itch. Stay tuned. All right, number 4 on our list. I guess I'll make it official. Number 4, the Taurus OSS DS 24/7 in 45 ACP. In 2005, US SOCOM released a solicitation for a new 45 caliber handgun to replace the Beretta. We all know that didn't happen. We got stuck with the M17, M18 from SIG. Yeah, somebody's pockets got greased there. And they went back with a 9mm, which is okay, I guess. But at the time, they were looking at a 45, and Taurus threw their hat into the ring with the OSS DS pistol. The OSS DS version featured a decocker, which would allow you to drop the striker and have a long double-action revolver type trigger pull on the first round. Had a 5 1/4 inch barrel, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, a 12+1 or a 13 round capacity. Always wanted one of those, never got around to getting one. Now, again, they're hard to find. Okay, the honorable mention. The reason I call this an honorable mention is because they still make them. Going back to Tricky Dick's gun shop, I walked in there one day, out on the counter in a black leather violin case with a crushed purple velour lining was a 1927 A1 Tommy gun with a drum, about 3 stick mags, and this was one of those auto ordnance reproductions that they made about 20 years ago. I want to say the package price on it was $1,200, which at the time was a lot of money. You can pick them up today still for about $2,500, which is still a lot of money. $1,200 is still a lot of money, but Prohibition era gun, and I find it ironic that it was not only prohibitively expensive then, it's still prohibitively expensive. So never got one, missed out. The reason it's an honorable mention is because technically you can still get them new from Auto Ordnance. So last but not least on my list was the Winchester Model 70 in 458 Win Mag. Reba McEntire's character in Tremors checked all the right boxes for me back then, and her Model 70 in 458 Win Mag was just icing on the cake. As some of you know, March 31st, 2006, Winchester, by way of U.S. Repeating Arms in New Haven, Connecticut, quit making weapons in the United States. They moved it all overseas. So while you can still get a Winchester Model 70, they ain't cheap. And if you want an American-made one, you're going to have to resort to a used copy. Now, fortunately, for those of you buying a used Model 70 and 458 Win Mag, most of them weren't fired a whole lot because they were expensive to shoot and would beat the dog out of you. So, I actually have a Winchester Model 70 made in the US, controlled round feed. Mine is a Safari grade in 375 H&H. If you saw my Brushline Pro video that I did for Crimson Trace Brushline Pro about 2 years ago, then you've seen that rifle. It's a great rifle. I wish it was a 458 Win Mag and not my third 375 H&H, but I still wouldn't trade it. I got a really good deal on that one. I think that's all I had written down here. Folks, now I want to hear from you about the one that got away. Let me know about the one you missed out on. I'm looking forward to it. Until next time, take care and God bless.